All right. So a chord is a segment whose endpoints are on the circle. So in this case, TU would be a chord. SR would be a chord. Why are they equal? Well, it's something from our trigonometry. It's something from our trigonometry chapter, why they're equal. Also from chapter 1-ish. What do we know about this angle and this angle? They're equal. Those two angles are equal. What do we know about SQ? It's a radius, right? What other segments in this are congruent to SQ? RQ, QT, QU. Because of side angle side, this is going to be congruent to this. Why are they congruent? Because these two triangles are congruent. Okay? Or you can do the law of cosines and figure out the lengths of each of them. But it really doesn't matter. Those two are going to be congruent to each other because they're part of congruent triangles. Okay? Because by vertical angles, these angles are congruent, and by side angle side, these triangles are congruent. Okay? So, two chords from the same size of angles are going to be the same length. So if this angle is congruent to this angle, this chord is going to be congruent to this chord. And then we can go in reverse from that. If this chord is congruent to this chord, then their angles are going to be congruent. Okay? Either way. All right. So if this chord is the same length as this chord, let's say this is 80 degrees. And these chords are the same length. How long will NM be? Well, it's also going to be 80 degrees. Two chords of the same length will have the same length of arcs. Okay? Two chords of the same length will cut off the same length of arcs. Also, two chords of the same length, this chord is 6, this chord is 6. They're going to be the same distance away from the center of the circle. They're each going to be, in this case, 4 away from the center of the circle. So, when you draw a radius to a chord, it's always going to make a right angle. A radius to a chord will bisect the chord and make a right angle. Okay? All right. So, if CD is 40 long, from here to here is 40 long. How long do you think AB is? How long do you think AB is? That's going to be 40 as well. Because if this is the same length as this, which I say right here, so since they're both the same distance away from the center, they're going to be equal in length. Okay? What this says is when you cut off a chord, it's going to make a right angle, and these two are going to bisect each other. When a radius intersects a chord right in the middle, it's going to bisect it and make it perpendicular. Okay? So here are some actual problems that we need to solve by using what we just learned. Okay. These fresh flowers need to be in 4 inches of water to stay healthy. Is there 4 inches of water in this bowl? Do we know? Well, figure it out. I don't know how this bowl is standing up because it's a perfectly round at the bottom. It would just start rolling around the table, I would think, but whatever. To figure this out, let's draw some diameters on here. So then we have some radiuses. Okay? How long is the radius of this circle? How many inches? 3 inches. Because if the all the way across is 6, this is 3 inches, this is 3 inches, this is 3 inches, right? Okay. We know this is 5 inches across here. How far is it from here to here? The last one I just drew, that diagonal one. How long would that be? 3 inches. Why is it 3 inches? Because it's a radius of the circle. Now, if this is 5 inches all the way across, this is 2.5 inches. What I want to know is how long this is. Because if this is an inch or longer, then what do we know? The flowers are in at least how many inches of water? 4 inches. So we got to see if x is 1 or more. How do I figure this out? Well, this is a right triangle, so it is the Pythagorean theorem. Let's see of this triangle right here. This triangle right here, what's C going to be? 3. 3 squared equals 2.5 squared plus x squared. 3 squared is 9. 2.5 squared is like 6.25. X squared is x squared. If we subtract 6.25 from each side we get 2.75 equals x squared. If we take the square root of 2.75, we get 1 point what? 1.1 squared is like 1.21. 1.7 about equals x. So the water is how deep? Well, it's about 4.7 inches. About. Well, that's more than 4 inches. So the flowers will stay healthy. Okay? That's putting things together. Okay? Let's put things together here. How many fish can be healthy in this fish bowl? Now, the surface of this, and we're going to take a top view of this thing. The surface of the water needs to be 50 inches squared. The surface of the water has to be 50 inches squared to support one fish. We want to figure out how much water is here, what the surface area of the water is, to see how many fish it has. Because if it's 100 inches, then we can have 2 fish. If it's 150 inches, we can have 3 fish. Okay, so let's see how many fish we can have in this little fish bowl. Now, again, I'm going to draw some diameters in here. So now we have a bunch of radiuses. What's the length of each radius? 6 inches. And then to figure out how long this is right here, because that's the magical thing, to figure out how long this is. Yeah, I know this. I know this is 6 inches, right? Because that's my radius. How long is this little up and down segment here? 2 inches. Because it has to be 8 inches from the water level to the bottom. And if this is 6, then it's another 2 here. Hey, I know 2 sides of a right triangle. If I know 2 sides of a right triangle, how do I solve it? Pythagorean theorem. C squared equals a squared plus b squared. 6 squared equals 2 squared plus b squared. 36 equals 4 plus b squared. Subtract 4, 32 equals b squared. Take the square root. B is somewhere bigger than 5, but smaller than 6. Give me 2 decimal places. 5.66. Okay? Now I need to find the area of this circle. Because I now know the radius of this circle where the water level is 5.66 inches. So to find the area of a circle, it's pi r squared. What's the radius? 5.66 squared. Okay? So 5.66 squared is like 32. 32 times pi is 100 point what? 100.64? So if it's 100.64, how many fish can safely live in that water? Two fish. One fish, two fish. Red fish, blue fish, right? Little Dr. Seuss for you. Okay, so two fish can live in that bowl with the surface area of the water. So, what did we learn today? Well, we learned that arcs are congruent if their chords are congruent. We learned that if central angles are congruent, then chords are congruent. And if chords are congruent, then central angles are congruent. And when you draw a radius perpendicular to a chord, then what happens is it splits it in half. Okay, and there you go. Your assignment's already out there. You may get started. We have plenty of time to work. That means Abby has plenty of time to make up her quiz. We get to the time of year where all kinds of people are gone for every stinking activity in the world. So